Okay, well, good afternoon. My name is Andrew Flatres. I'm the Braille Product Manager. And joining me today is my good friend Peter Tucic from the Windy City of Chicago. Hi, Peter.
How's it going, everybody? What's up, Andy? How's it going over there in the UK?
It's not bad, not bad. Very good.
Nice.
So today's webinar is called A Deeper Dive, a further exploration of driving screen readers with the new Brailliant BI X series. On today's agenda, we're going to touch base on the what's new on version 1.1.1. So those that have received their Brailliant BI X series, you may have already done so, but we have recently pushed a new update, version 1.1.1, and we'll talk about what's new, followed then by some basically how we can do certain tasks. So connecting to 3 different screen readers, we're going to talk about how we can connect to JAWS, connect to NVDA and iOS. And then we're going to talk about some general commands, some common commands, which is under our tips and tricks, and then how we can switch between connected devices. So the Brailliant BI X series can connect to multiple devices, and we'll talk about how you can switch between those seamlessly. And then at the end, we'll have some questions and answers. At the moment, we've disabled the raised hands, but we will enable that towards the end of the session. But by all means, please post your Q&As. And of course, the chat is also available. But one of the things I want to just touch base on really quickly is our COVID relief funding, the ARPA. So some of you may be aware of this, but in response to the pandemic, additional federal funding has been created to help the education sector address student learning loss, close achievement gaps, and assisted distance learning. So this is certainly funding is being provided to schools by the federal government, and school districts are currently using and planning how to use these funds. Perhaps you know a little bit more about Peter to explain that, or have I pretty much summed it up?
No, you've got it, Andy. And so the piece of this is, and we put this slide up because for those of you who are in education, you are able to take advantage of the ARPA funding, the ARPA funding, which is part of the latest government stimulus plan to get the economy back on track. And a lot of this funding is dedicated and designated for loss of learning. So if you're in the education side of things, you are able to utilize billions and billions of dollars to help outfit or address your needs, right, for learning loss. And that falls into providing lots of funding for assistive technology. And it's not just blindness specific, it's all across the board. But this is something that you are able to access. It is not something that you need to qualify for, that there's stipulations on. It's a matter of getting that funding through your administration in your various school districts and such. And this again, the terminology is here. I mean, you'll access that you want to utilize ARPA funding for this. And it is something that is available to education here in the United States. So I know there are others tuning in different parts of the world, or some of you are consumers, or some of you may be not in the education sphere, but this is something you will be hearing from us and from lots of folks over the next couple of years, because this funding will be valid for not just the current time period. This is going to extend through 2022 into 2023, and this money will be available for you to think about various needs across the board. And certainly we are aware of it, and we know that it is something in certain parts of this country there is a very dire need for addressing loss of learning, and also just getting technology updated, getting your students up to par with what is going on in this connected world. So whether that is utilizing connected devices, whether that is having access to Braille or various communication systems or anything, this funding is there. So just wanted to put that out there and make sure everybody is fully aware that this is something that is available for you if you're in education.
Great stuff. And yeah, by all means, take advantage of that, and tell everyone that anyone that's in education, by all means. More information can be found from the HumanWare.com website. So let's talk about the recent update, version 1.1.1. What did this bring us? Now, last week, we pushed a new update that was available to our new Braille display. So that's the Brailliant BI X series, the 40X, the 20X, and also the Mantis as well. So we'll touch base on what's included. So the first enhancement that I want to announce is the PDF support. So amongst other familiar file types that the Brailliant BI X series supports, such as docx, HTML, TXT, we have added PDF support. So the PDF support will be available within the keypad editor application and also the Victor Reader library. There is, of course, a limitation of file size, so it's a 200 megabytes file size, but most PDFs should be certainly fit within that parameter. If it's, of course, a picture PDF, then of course you will get notified that it's an error message, or you'll say that it cannot be opened. So it has to be a true text PDF file, and it will strip down the text and put that in a linear fashion. So there'll be no formatting that it will bring over. The second piece of the new update is a new global shortcut for a quick note. And this really allows a user to be anywhere within the Keysoft Lite environment and easily create a document. So if you perhaps in a Victor Reader and you're reading the book and someone's just asked you to take a quick note, you can do so by pressing backspace with the letter N for November. N for November. So backspace with the letter N for November, and that will allow you to create a quick note. So basically, it will get you into that document, and you can start typing your note. We also include the ability to hide the options item menu. So with our customization of applications, we can pick and choose which to display on the main menu. But before we never was able to hide the options menu or the power off items. So now we can do so, and that's only available on the Brailliant X series. You can hide the options menu. Great if you are in the education sector. Perhaps you don't want a student going into the options and changing some settings. You can hide that options menu. But of course, you can go straight to that options menu by the shortcut of space with the letter O for options. We've also included improvements in the switching between various Braille tables. So previously we was able to switch between free Braille tables that you had to set up within your Braille profile. So we had the contracted Braille table, we had uncontracted, and we had computer Braille. Now what we have done now is have the ability to select none under certain Braille tables. So if you're using computer Braille, for example, you don't use computer Braille, you can actually select none. If you do select none, then it will allow you then to toggle between just the two Braille tables, the contracted and the uncontracted. So it's a good way for learners, Braille learners who are trying to learn contracted Braille. You can switch between uncontracted and then contracted without computer Braille getting in the way. We've introduced a government mode. Now, the government mode is on request of ordering a product. So those that have got a product in the field already, unfortunately, you're not able to change that into a government mode. It's a special mode, and it removes the intelligence of the Braille display. So it removes Keysoft Lite, it removes the Wi-Fi, the Bluetooth. It really is sort of cut down to just a dummy Braille display. More localization is included, so we've included Czech, Dutch, Polish, Portuguese, Brazil, Slovenian, and Spanish. And on the Mantis Q40, again, additional languages including Czech, Portuguese, Brazil, Slovenian, Italian, Norwegian, Spanish, Swedish, and Dutch. And that includes the keyboard layouts. However, the Dutch does not include a Dutch keyboard layout, as they predominantly use a US international keyboard layout. We have new folders that we now create. So default folders, documents folder, and book folders. So the location of your editor application will be stored under the documents folder. So these will be created by default. And lastly, we have an export and import configuration option, which does not include Bluetooth pairing. So what this does, it's available in the diagnostic menu. So the diagnostic menu, to access that diagnostics menu, you have to start up in a recovery mode. So it's not going to be available as you start up in a normal use. It's in a recovery mode. but it's a great way if your device ever needs to go in for repair for whatever reason, you want to export your data, sorry, not your data, export your Wi-Fi configurations and then import them into, maybe it's a loan unit. So perhaps you've taken advantage of the care plan program. You can then import the Wi-Fi configurations back to the loan unit. Okay, that being said, let's crack on then with the next piece of the agenda, and it is connecting to the host devices. So as I mentioned, we're going to showcase how we can connect to 3 different screen readers. Now, HumanWare's new Braille displays can connect to 5 Bluetooth devices and 1 USB device. And I want to point out that the Brailliant BI 40X uses the latest wireless Bluetooth technology of Bluetooth 5, which means you're going to get a better and reliable, stronger connection. Now, the current screen reader compatibility includes JAWS 18 and above, Supernova, NVDA, VoiceOver iOS, and VoiceOver Mac iOS. Now, unfortunately, Android and Narrator are currently not available. Neither is Chrome, but that will soon change. We have an ETA time of around about 3 to 4 months on the Chrome side. And with the Android side, we are hoping around about September time. So without further ado, I'm going to pass you on to Peter Tucic. He's going to talk to you about how to connect to JAWS, and depending on which version you have, it could be JAWS 18 or JAWS 19 or 20, he'll talk about how you can connect to those different versions. Then after that, he'll pass you back on to myself, which will talk about the iOS version. Over to you, Peter.
I am always ready. All right, Andy. So what I'm going to do, everybody, is I am going to share my screen so you all hear my screen reader. I'm going to walk us through the sort of the steps of how we pair, as well as then how we're going to go through some basic commands with the JAWS screen reader. As a JAWS user for more than 25 years at this point, so I go pretty far back when I was a wee little lad, as Andy would say, I've used JAWS for a long time. And with that being said, when it comes to using a Braille display with JAWS, and just using JAWS in general, there are layers upon layers upon layers upon layers of commands. It is a very, very comprehensive screen reader that allows for a tremendous amount of both customization as well as just ability when we talk about Braille displays. So I'm not going to be getting into the nitty-gritties of layer commands and customizing Braille commands and the keyboard manager and all of these different things. But what I want to illustrate is how easy it is to connect and get yourselves going. Because generally, once we get started, the learning curve becomes much easier. But it's getting over that initial hurdle of learning how to set up and doing some basic navigation that will start us down that road. So I'm going to share my screen here. And I'm going to share my sound as well. And I'm going to slow this way down, so don't worry.
Windows D, folder view.
Let's slow this puppy dog down.
Slower, slower.
So that we can all hear what's going on.
Viewer.
All right, so I am on my desktop at this point. And what I want to talk about before we get into all of our JAWS commands is what do we need to do to get this paired and how do we set this up? And you can do this either via Bluetooth or via USB. I'm going to show you how to pair via Bluetooth. And then I'll show you how to get it going. The nice thing about Bluetooth with JAWS or NVDA is that it's easy to do, and with NVDA will detect automatically no matter what you're doing, which is far simpler, and I'll get to NVDA once Andrew talks about VoiceOver. You can certainly connect via USB through your USB-C connector. That is the standard way we charge our device, and also even when we're using the device with our screen reader, the BI 20X or 40X will show up as a mass storage device. And so that's really nice. We can store files on it, or we can move files back and forth to and from our PC just by plugging it in. So it will not interfere with how it's working with your screen reader. What you do have to keep in mind though, and I am running JAWS 2021, if you are running JAWS 2021, you can fast forward if you're listening to this webinar in the future, because there's nothing you need to do. The Braille displays are already installed in terms of the drivers. But if you're running JAWS 2018, 2019, or 2020, you will have to come to our website and download the Braille Terminal Tools option that will then allow you to install the Brailliant BI X Series drivers. And I'm going to show you how to do that quickly. So again, I'm on the desktop. I'm going to open up Google Chrome. So I'm going to come into Chrome
Search
here.
box edit. Google enter.
And I did that
Toolbar.
by just tapping my Windows key, going to the Start menu, typing in Google, pressing Enter, and going to Chrome. You could use other web browsers if you want. I am a big Chrome fan because it is universal and all over the place now. Once we're in our address bar,
New tab dash
what we're going to do is come to support.humanware.com.
HumanWare-OS. Enter. Support.humanware.com.
Okay, and once this loads, we're going to be on the HumanWare support page. Now, this is where we
One read
find
HumanWare.
all kinds of documentation. We find, based on the product we're looking for, all relevant software, manuals, drivers, how-to videos, audio tutorials, other things that I'm probably missing that somehow will be part of each product page. But once we're on this page, we want to open a links list, and I want to find, again, there are many ways to do this, but I'm going to open a links list and find the Brailliant BI X Series page. So links list being insert F7.
Links list dial.
And I'm going to press the letter B.
Braille note, Brailliant BI X Series.
Here's the
11 notes.
Brailliant BI X Series link. I'm going to press enter.
Enter.
And at this point, it's going to load the page for the Brailliant BI X Series. And this is where we find all relevant information on the BI X Series. Again, video tutorials, lots more will be coming in that regard. Audio tutorials are here from our friends at Mystic Access, who do a wonderful job. Chris and Kim Nova. I think it's the first time I'm saying that on the webinar. No more Chris and Kim with different last names. So we have a marriage and a whole new name and a whole new way to look forward. So Mystic Access has done audio tutorials on many products. You can find them here. We can move through this by heading. We certainly will find our software and how-tos and all sorts of things. And what we want to do, though, is we're looking for our software link. You will also hear my 4-month-old screaming her head off in the background, so forgive me for that. But I am going to press Control F as in find, and I'm going to search for the word software here.
JAWS find die.
So I'm going to type in software and press enter.
Software, enter. Heading level 1 software and driver.
It brings me to the software and drivers link area, and I down arrow.
Link Braille terminal tools left pair and zip right pair.
And here is the Braille terminal tools package. What I will do is, again, if I'm running JAWS 2018, 2019, or 2020, I need to download this. It will go into your downloads folder. You will activate it, and you need to install the drivers for JAWS that will contain the Braille displays of the BI X series, as well as others. There's a list of drivers, and you can choose which ones you want. I'm not going to demonstrate that right now because I do not have administrative privileges on my computer here at HumanWare. So for demonstration's sake, it's something that I'm not going to do. But it is very straightforward, and you do need to make sure you have those drivers installed. Otherwise, our next steps will be totally irrelevant because you won't have the Braille displays in the Braille display list. So again, we have to download these drivers. I will say on this support page, we do also have a document on how to use the Braille display with iOS, as well as how to use the Braille display with JAWS. So we did create those guides. They are relevant to the BI 40, working on some manipulating and changes for the BI 20 version. But it is something that is up there. So please keep that in mind as well. At this point, what I want to do is show you how to pair these. So again, we've downloaded the drivers if we're running an older version of JAWS, 2018, 2019, or 2020. If you're running 2021 and you are updated, I'm running the April something version, I think April 7th or 20th or 18th or a day in April, you're good to go. And we can then pair the Braille display. So the first thing we need to do, I'm going to show you how to pair this via Bluetooth. So I am going to, on the main menu of my Brailliant Braille display, I'm going to activate the terminal option. Once I'm in my terminal option, I need to come down and activate the option that says add Bluetooth device. So add Bluetooth device. And when I do that, I press enter, it will say activate your device in your host device's Bluetooth settings. And again, this is going to differ even on Windows 10 computers, which is what I'm using. This may look a little bit different from the way I'm doing it, but I'll give you the basics on how to get there quickly, at least give you something to work with. It's also outlined in our document. And you will also see on your Brailliant X Series unit that it will show up as either Brailliant 20X or 40X followed by the serial number. So at this point, I'm going to come to the main menu by pressing my Windows key.
Search.
I'm just going to type in the first few letters of the word Bluetooth.
Box game. Bluetooth and other devices.
It comes up with Bluetooth and other devices. I'm going to press enter.
Enter.
And what happens is
Bluetooth and other devices. Add Bluetooth or other device button.
I come into an option here where I can add Bluetooth or other devices. So again, it's standard. This is not specific to JAWS or anything like that. This is just how you're going to pair your device to your computer. I would activate this add button, and it's going to search for my Bluetooth device that I want to pair with. I would see my BI40X, and I would pair. Again, very straightforward. I'm not going to run through this process because I want to get into the meat and potatoes of actually navigating and things, but this is a standard process for how we add a device to a Windows 10 computer. The key here is to make sure we're in the terminal and we select add Bluetooth device. Once you are connected, what will happen is you will be placed back in your terminal. You need to go into your connected devices list, and you will then see the name of your computer followed by an 8-dot full cell telling you again that this is connected, and you need to press enter, and then you will see the words Braille display shown on your BI X series unit. And at that point, we're ready to add the Braille display to the screen reader of JAWS itself. So to do that, what I'm going to do, I'm going to close this window here.
Alt F4, HumanWare.
I'm also going to close our support
Alt
page.
F4, desktop.
All right. What we want to do at this point is we need to add the Braille display to JAWS. So we need to bring our focus into the JAWS window. For those of you who are JAWS users, you know you can press Insert J to do that. Again, Insert, or if you're on the laptop layout, maybe Caps Lock key and J, depending on what you have your JAWS modifier set to. I am going to press Insert J and find JAWS.
JAWS Professional.
Okay, here's my JAWS Pro window here. I need to open the menu bar, so I'm going to press Alt.
Menu bar.
I'm going to press my down arrow to come into our
menu options.
Our options menu here. I'm going to press the letter L as in Lena to come into my Braille options.
Leaving menus. Braille basic settings dialog.
Now here you will have, and this is where you by default have no Braille display set up. Nothing's here. What you need to do is you're going to tab
modify settings, add Braille
to the add Braille display option. And right now mine is set up. It says the active Braille display is Brailliant BI 40X because I have set this up before and I didn't want to remove and reinstall due to my administrative privileges. But what I'm going to do is press enter on add here.
Add Braille space. Select.
And it will say some select components to add, and you have a list of Braille displays here that you can add to JAWS. And this will start with the focus line, and there are lots of them in here. I'm going to press the letter B until I find the appropriate Brailliant unit that I want to add. So in this case, a 40.
Brailliant BI 40X checked.
Okay, and you'll hear that each one has a checkbox. So I just pressed B until I got down to Brailliant BI 40X. I will check this box. I will press tab.
BBB. Read only edit. This Braille display connects through a USB or Bluetooth port.
The nice thing here is you can leave that as is. It's going to say, okay, it's going to recognize this connected via USB or B or Bluetooth. You're fine. Press tab again.
Next greater button.
And you'll have a next button. Let's press enter or space.
Space. Select the Braille display that you want to use each time you start JAWS.
Now here's where you want to choose. And again, I do have several displays that I switch back and forth between, especially for testing purposes. But you do want to choose and make sure you have the display you'd like each time JAWS starts. Which display do you want JAWS to look for? And ideally, you would probably have one Braille display that your preferred Braille display. Maybe you have more than one, but which one do you want to use? I'm going to select my BI 40X from this list. In this combo box, I'm going to press tab to finish.
Let's back finish button.
Now, I'm not going to do this because again, I don't want to restart JAWS during the webinar. Once I finish, it will say okay, but you need to restart JAWS for this change to take effect. And you can certainly then restart your screen reader and your Braille should be good to go. Again, always looks easy when Peter shows it on a webinar or when I show up and sit down with you and we make it work in person, and then you do it and you get frustrated. But remember, at the end of the day, you are smarter than a Brailliant BI X series unit. So what happens is once we have our Braille active, we can fully drive the computer from our Braille display. This is useful or not useful depending on what type of user you are. I personally use the keyboard for almost all of my commands, but there are some commands that I prefer to activate via the Braille keyboard. If you're a deaf-blind user, or if you're somebody who just wants to close the lid on your laptop and strictly use Braille, or maybe you don't want speech and you just want to use Braille and you don't want to touch your QWERTY keyboard, you absolutely can do that from JAWS. It's very comprehensive and very doable. Are there lots of commands? Yes. Are there lots of acrobatics to remember? Absolutely. And we go through a lot of the basic commands in our using the Brailliant BI X 40X with JAWS document. And I'll give you a couple of those here, but there are tons of commands that are supported. A few basic ones. So at its most basic level, I'll give you a couple of simple ones here. And that's going to be to go to the desktop, for instance. On the Brailliant BI 40X, the command to do that is we're going to use our command keys. So to the left of our Braille display, again, not the Braille keyboard, but the command keys, we have 1, 2, and 3. To the right of the Braille display, we have 4, 5, and 6. If I press command keys 1, 4, and 5, these are also called C keys if you're looking up commands, which we'll do in a second. So command keys 1, 4, and 5.
Desktop, folder view, list view, team viewer.
I move my focus to my desktop. Again, not Braille, not our Braille keyboard keys, but command keys 1, 4, 5. Bring my focus to the desktop and minimize all apps. At this point, there are lots of basic commands that I can use. So if I want to emulate my down arrow, for instance, I can press .4 with space.
Braille terminal tools,
Here's
17
Braille
of
terminal
20.
tools that was downloaded. .1 with space would emulate my up arrow.
Team viewer,
Back
16 of 20.
To team viewer. .6 with space would emulate my right arrow.
JAWS 2021, 12 of 20.
And .3 with space would subsequently activate my left arrow.
Team viewer, 16.
Again, a couple very, very basic commands. But I'm always asked, well, how do you learn these commands? And what if I just want to push things and have something happen, but not actually throw my computer into some wild area that I don't know? And what I always tell people is you can use keyboard help, which is how lots of us teach ourselves all sorts of commands, because you can try different key combos and get different, the exact result of what those key combinations do. And so keyboard help is very useful both in NVDA, JAWS, or VoiceOver. And the way we turn on keyboard help when we're using a BI 40X with JAWS is we press command keys 1, 2, and 5. There is a Braille command to do this as well. The Braille command from the Braille keyboard is keys 3, 5, and 6 with space. So again, you can do this from the Braille keyboard as well. If you're doing this on JAWS itself with the computer or the computer keyboard, you would press insert and the number 1 on the number row. What this does is it turns on keyboard help so that now when I press any key combination, it will tell me what those keys do. So again, we want to read through our manual or through our guide that Andrew and I spend a lot of time creating. Andrew put in a ton of work with screenshots and all sorts of things. We want to read through and learn these basic commands. But if we're just on the move or we're just feeling like exploring, turning on keyboard help and then pressing something like .4 with space.
Down arrow moves to the next line and speaks it.
It will tell me what that does. So .4 with space, it says down arrow, move to the next line and speaks it. Let's say I try, something like remember command keys 1, 4, and 5.
Braille C1 plus C4 plus C5 minimizes all running applications and places the focus on the desktop.
Boom, it tells me what that command does. And this goes pretty far. I mean, you really can get all over the place. The other thing you can do here is from the Braille keyboard, you can emulate all of your QWERTY keyboard modifier keys. So a lot of JAWS, there are JAWS commands, there are Windows commands, there are editing commands that are universal. They're not part of JAWS. So for instance, the command to close a window is Alt F4. The command to print when you're in Microsoft Word is Control P, right? Those are just commands that you would want to execute. And we can do those from the Braille display. The way we do that when we're running JAWS is we use spacebar and .8 or enter. So spacebar and enter combined with the other keys on the Braille keyboard that emulate different modifiers. And again, this is where we can get very lost very quickly. But for instance, if I wanted to press Control P, my control key is going to be .3 simultaneously pressed with space and .8 or space and enter. So .3 space and enter would be control followed by the letter P.
Control plus P plays / pauses the current FS reader track.
We hear that it says Control plus P. So if I was in Microsoft Word, it would print my file. But in this case, if I'm using FS Reader, it's going to play and pause that track. .2 with space and .8 is going to be our Alt key. So if I wanted to press Alt B as in boy, I would press .2 with spacebar and .8 followed by the letter B as in boy.
Alt B.
And there's Alt B. So again, and you can go through these. You can press function keys, you can press insert, you can combine them. So if I wanted to do Control Alt J, for instance, I would press .2, .3, and space and .8 together, followed by the letter J.
Alt Control J.
And you hear that it says Alt Control J. Again, you can do this from the keyboard. There's no reason that I can't just use my QWERTY keyboard. But knowing that this is an option to fully drive the JAWS screen reader from the Braille display is very useful. I'm going to turn keyboard help off. Again, it is a toggle, so I'm just going to press Command keys 1, 2, and 5 and turn this off.
Off.
And give you a couple more basic commands. One is to get your focus to the start menu here. We will press dots 3, 4 with space. So that'd be your search box. So think of ST 3, 4 with space.
Search box edit.
Right. That would be another very useful command. And there are many of these. But again, we're looking at just our most basic commands here. Think about up, down, left, right, keyboard help, start menu. The other one that is very widely used is the menu bar. How do I get into my menu bar? Yes, you could press Alt on the keyboard. Space with M will also do it. So if I'm in Microsoft Word and I press space with M, I will pull down those ribbons and I can start moving through those menus. There are also ways to emulate Tab or Shift Tab or Home or End or anything. It goes very, very deep, including how do I get the time and date and battery status and all of those. So again, what the takeaway here is, you need, if you're running JAWS 2018, 2019, or 2020, you need to install the JAWS drivers. Once you have those drivers installed, you need to make sure you are paired via Bluetooth if you're using Bluetooth. Otherwise, you'll plug in via USB-C, your USB-C cable. You will go in and you will need to make sure that you have added your device. Once added, your Braille will be set up. You have to do it through JAWS. Choose your appropriate Braille display. Once you're connected, you have a wide variety of commands, and you can take this in a million different directions. But knowing how to turn keyboard help on and off can be very useful because you can play with commands and not throw yourself into who knows where. Andrew, I'm going to toss it over to you for some VoiceOver stuff, and then we're going to come back to me with NVDA and the Braille Extender, which is pretty awesome.
Awesome. Thanks very much, Peter. And I
Audio
hope that was a great sort of presentation to get you started with our Braille displays and JAWS. So now over to me. I'm going to show you how we can connect our Brailliant BI X Series to an iOS device, and again show some basic commands that we're going to be using within iOS. So I'm going to share my screen, and hopefully the voiceover will come through Zoom. We have had some issues before in the past, so
yeah, it's definitely been pretty laggy, so you have to forgive us if Zoom, hopefully they've gotten better, but we've certainly had, this is also why I'm having Andrew do this part, not me, because I would just get very annoyed when voiceover doesn't come through the Zoom meeting. But hopefully you'll be good to go, Andy. We'll get through it. We're not getting shut down either way. And what you may have to do is turn voiceover off and on quickly for it to actually come through.
Voiceover on.
Oh,
Airplane mode.
Like
Airplane mode.
It's coming
Calculator.
through, yeah?
Right. Yes, it is. You're good.
Wednesday, May
Can't hear it on
12.
my side, so
Yep, you got
Swipe
it.
up or down to select a
Awesome.
custom
Okay.
action. Then
So
double
very
tap
similar
to
then
activate.
to, as Peter mentioned, when you want to get your display connected to a Bluetooth device, it's like any other Bluetooth peripheral. You need to get your device into a searchable state, into a discovery mode. And to do this on the Braille display, so from the main menu, and if you're not on the main menu, we can press our home button at the very front, that's the circle button at the front, or we can press all 6 dots and space to get you to that main menu in traditional keysoft fashion. We then can go to terminal, and the first item in that menu is in fact terminal, so I'm going to press enter on terminal. And going through the menu items within terminal, there's only a couple of options here. I'm just going to talk to you about these. We have in terminal, we have connected devices, we have add Bluetooth device, and back. So 3 options here. I'm going to select add Bluetooth devices, and to scroll through those available items, I'm simply pressing my spacebar. And there's various ways of navigating through the menus of the Keysoft Lite environment here. We can use space, we can use thumb keys, and of course we can use first letter navigation. So I'm going to choose add Bluetooth device by pressing enter, or you can press the cursor routing key. And the message that I get now on my Braille display is activate your device in your host device's Bluetooth settings. And it then follows by the Brailliant BI 40X followed by the serial number. So at this stage, I'm going to go to my settings options within my iPhone. This is slightly different to pairing your normal Braille display. So normally you'd go to settings, accessibility, voiceover, Braille. Here we don't. because we're using a new standard, we can just go straight to our Bluetooth settings. This is the great thing about these new Braille displays. It's picking it up like any kind of Bluetooth peripheral. So I'm going to go to my settings.
Settings.
Double tap on
4
settings.
new items.
I'm going
Settings.
to navigate to my Bluetooth.
Bluetooth.
And double tap on Bluetooth.
Button. Bluetooth.
Now, in Bluetooth, it
Double
needs
tap to toggle
discover.
setting.
It's going to search for any Bluetooth devices out there. So at the very bottom of my list, I will have an option, other devices. And there we have it. My Brailliant BI 40X picked up. I'm going to double tap on to select that. As that then starts to establish the pairing, I will get a prompt on my Braille display of iPhone connected, or whatever the name is of your iPhone itself. Mine's actually just called iPhone. And it then prompts me.
The beauty of this, Andrew, is your voiceover stopped coming through, but I think it will come back. So
oh, right,
so
okay. Okay, I can't hear it on my side. So so now I am prompted with USB connections. I'm actually the Braille display put me into the connected devices. Now in the connected devices, as I space through, I do now have my iPhone option followed by my one cell full of 8 dots, telling me that it's connected. Okay, it's paired up. As I continue to space through to see what other connections I have a reconnect devices, back, and then USB connections. So I have those available to me at the moment. I'm going to press enter on iPhone. And on that point, I would then start to be connected to my Braille display. So as I now press enter, I can start to move. Is it coming
now
through?
Now discoverable as iPhone. My device. BHM20. Brailliant BI Mazda. Not
so
connected.
I'm using my thumb keys
Button.
now to move around, and we'll talk
Swipe
about
up or
how
down
we
to
can
select
move
a
around
custom
the
action.
iOS device.
Then
We'll talk about
double
some
tap
general
to
navigation.
activate.
We'll talk about how we can change the rotor commands and how we can navigate by that rotor command setting. So first thing though, I want to take myself back to that home screen. So simple command to take me back to the home screen is spacebar with the letter H for home. Space with the letter H for home. And that will take me straight to my home screen.
Wednesday, May 12th.
Prompted that in the audio.
Swipe up or down to select a custom action.
How can I
then
navigate
double tap
around
to
it
activate.
by item? There's a couple of ways. We can use our outer thumb key. So at the very front edge of our Braille displays, we have 4 HumanWare signature thumb keys. The first one to the far left is called our previous thumb key, and the opposite end, the very far right, is our next thumb key. So I'm going to use my far right thumb key to just navigate to my next item. And as I do this, you will hear, or should hear, I'm hoping, I'm not sure if it's come through, Peter.
Nope. It decided it was back and now it's gone. This is the beauty of Zoom with the new iPad sharing piece. Someday I'm gonna have to hook this up to my mixer so we don't have any issues.
Yeah, that's
it'll randomly come back, don't worry.
Yeah. Okay, well maybe you, oh, here we go. It's coming now, I think. It's trying to catch up, is it? No?
Nope. It's okay though. It's okay. The commands will be consistent. And honestly, it's good because then VoiceOver won't talk over you.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, so my next thumb key is allowing me to take me to my next item by item. And if, of course, I want to go backwards, so this is mimicking your swipe right and your swipe left, taking me left and taking me right. I can also use my space.
Double tap to open.
To take me forward.
Page
or I can use space.1 to take me
mail. Page
content
so music.
That's mimicking your left and mimicking your right.
Double tap
motions.
to open.
Now, if I want to turn over the page, so perhaps the application that I want to choose is not on my home screen. Perhaps it's on my second or third page. To turn over the page here, we can introduce a command, space with the letter O for over. Think of turning over the page. So space with the letter O will turn over my page.
FaceTime.
And the opposite
double
of the
tap
letter
to
O
open
is, of course, our OW sign. So space with dots 2, 4, and 6 will take me back a page to my previous page.
Page 1 of 8. Wednesday, May 12.
Now, like Peter said about JAWS,
swipe up or down to select a custom action.
If at all
Then
you
double
need to have
tap to
any
activate.
kind of voiceover help, there is a command that you can bring up, and that is space with the letter K. So space with the letter K for kilo. That will take you into the voiceover help. You can then start typing in some commands, and it will tell you what those commands can do. To quit the voiceover help, then it's your space with the letter B for Bravo. Space with B for Bravo. So to get into the voiceover help, space with K for kilo and space with B for bat to take you out of the voiceover.
And that one's very, very important because, again, as I said, if you want to play around and try to see, well, I wonder what C with space does, or I wonder what dots 156 with space does, which is how we answer a phone call, or I wonder what, dots, I don't know, space with, I don't know, B does, which gets you out of it, or activates a back button. It will tell you exactly what those commands do without actually performing them. So it's a great way to learn, just like keyboard help is in JAWS. And it's something that I always like to make sure we mention.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about changing the Rotor command. And now the Rotor command gives you various different options. It's a way of navigating around in different ways. So if perhaps you're in a document and you want to see, want to navigate by characters, want to navigate by sentence or word, maybe there's some actions that you need to do within the app. So perhaps you want to delete the app, those kinds of things. So wherever you are within the environment of iOS, you can go forwards and backwards for a Rotor command. Now to do that, using your Braille Perkins keyboard, you can press space with 5 and 6, which will take you forward through your Rotor command. I don't know, again, I don't know if you are hearing this. If you want to
Vertical
go backwards,
navigation.
you can press space 2 and 3. That will take
Headings.
you back.
Container.
It
Braille tape volume.
Oh, good. Okay. Now,
Speaking
if
rate.
perhaps the Rotor command is not showing something that you perhaps want, then that Rotor command can be customized within the VoiceOver settings. So, for example, if you want to include volume, if you want to include navigating line by up and down vertically, you can actually add that to your Rotor command. So for now, I'm actually going to navigate to my web app. Just give you an example here.
Map,
on my web,
weather.
and I want to find out how to spell weather.
Double
so I'm going to use
tap to
my
open.
space 5, 6 to navigate to characters.
Characters.
Okay. My characters is now set. Now I need to mimic my up and down swipe motions. Okay, so that's the up and down, which will take you backwards and forwards through your chosen Rotor command. So that is space.6 to take you forward, and space.3 to take you back. So I'm going to press space.6. That should then eventually spell out that the application name. Again, I cannot hear this, so I'm hoping it is. Yeah.
Nope.
No. Okay.
Nope,
It's not.
failed.
It's not.
But the point is, and this is one of the hardest pieces to master for a new iOS user, is the concept of the rotor, both turning it on the screen as well as what does the rotor do. And think of it as really being a way that we're going to navigate through a section of content. Do we want to move by character, by word, by link, by heading, by whatever it may be? We turn that rotor setting, as Andrew said, with dots 5, 6 in space, or we turn our fingers on screen. Once we reach that rotor setting we would like to move by, we then flick up or flick down to move by that chosen setting. And this is can be a very, very challenging task, especially for new VoiceOver users. But all of these commands are mapped to Braille commands, which can make it a lot easier knowing that there is a Braille equivalent for those commands.
Thanks, Peter. Okay, so now we're going to talk about changing your Braille input and output on the fly. Now, this in fact is quite common. And for example, you may find yourself in an edit box, perhaps you're in an email, perhaps you're in a text message. And when you type, the feedback that you receive is incorrect. So maybe it's you've got the voice and it's sort of talking gibberish. Perhaps the Braille is just incorrect. Now, this is probably because that you're using uncontracted or 8-dot computer Braille when you're actually typing in contracted Braille. So I'm going to show you what to do in these instances. So I'm going to navigate to my notes application. I'm going to press my cursor key. It will be used to select. So again, to select application, I can press the cursor key to select my application. I'm now going to go to the new note section. And again, another useful command is how I get to the bottom of my screen, of my iPhone screen. So there's a way to jump to the very bottom item, and there's a way to jump to the very top item. So the quickest way to jump to the very bottom is my space 4, 5, and 6 will take me to my very bottom.
29
and
new
there'll be
node
an option here
button.
to create new notes.
Double tap to compose a new node. New node.
Now in my notes,
Text
currently
field
I should
is editing.
be
Character
in
mode.
contracted Braille.
Insertion
So
pointed
let's give it a go.
start.
So if I press the letter K,
Use the
and then press the space bar. No, it's in
space
uncontracted. So let me
K.
just. So this is a perfect example. Perhaps I'm thinking that I want to do contracted Braille, but it's actually taking me as uncontracted. So I need to toggle my input. Now to toggle my input, I press space with dots 2, 3, and 6. So space 2, 3, and 6. That will toggle between my various different inputs. Now again, I didn't hear that. I didn't get any Braille feedback at this point.
K space.
So space 2, 3, 6.
Braille input contracted.
Yeah, there we go. That's worked.
Space.
So space 2, 3, 6 will now allow me to type in contracted Braille. And so now on my Braille display, however, I'm actually getting uncontracted. So that I don't want to see. I actually want to see contracted Braille. So I need to now change or toggle my output. So to toggle my output, I press space with the letter G.
Braille
I'll
output,
get a prompt
8 dot.
telling me that I'm in either computer Braille 8 dots or 6 dot uncontracted. Again, I can press space and G again, and it will allow me to switch to contracted Braille. So now my output is showing contracted Braille as well. So just to summarize, if you ever have any problems typing, reading any Braille, it's more than likely that you're using the wrong Braille code. So just make sure that you can toggle between pressing space with dots 2, 3, and 6. That's your input, and for your output, space with the letter G for golf.
And this one's important to everybody because a lot of times, again, these are standard commands. This is not specific to a Brailliant, or any Braille display will utilize these Braille input commands. And I have the number one piece I get is someone saying, I'm new to a Braille display in an iPhone, and they get very frustrated because they're not getting, what they're typing is not either showing correctly or being spoken back to them correctly. So you need to make sure that your input and your output are set the way you want them to be. In this case, we wanted to set input and output to contracted Braille. To take it a step further, if Andrew wanted to, he could go into Braille settings and make sure that the table he's using is the appropriate Braille table. So what Braille code, what does contracted Braille mean? Is it US? Is it UEB, which is the standard is UEB for English? Is he wanting to stick with an older Braille code? That is something you need to then take into VoiceOver. These are not specific to the Braille display. The display you're using is not going to matter. Braille is driven by iOS. So it is an iOS issue that you need to resolve and make sure your iOS or VoiceOver settings are set properly, and then your Braille display will work fine. But it is very helpful to know how to quickly flip your input and output sort of Braille setting on the fly. So space with dots 2, 3, 6 to change that input method on the fly, space with G to quickly change that output on the fly.
Okay, the last piece then of this presentation is customizing my Braille shortcuts. Now, one of the things that I like to do is create or change some of my Braille shortcuts. If you're like me and too familiar with Keysoft, I tend to change some of the VoiceOver shortcuts to mimic the Keysoft UI. So for this presentation or example, I'm going to create a shortcut that gets me to the VoiceOver settings. And I want to be able to use the backspace with the letter O for options to get me into VoiceOver. So without further ado, let's go straight to the home screen. Now remember, space with the letter H for home will take me back to that home screen. And now I'm going to jump to or navigate to the settings using my outer thumb keys, or my space dot 4 moves me forward by item. Okay, I'm now on the settings item. I'm going to press the cursor key above the word settings on my Braille display to take me into settings. And there's a couple of ways here that you can change or create or edit a command. You could actually go to all the way to VoiceOver, Braille, and choose your Braille display from there, or you can go into VoiceOver and choose command. So I'm going to navigate to accessibility at this point. Okay, so again,
accessibility
outer thumb keys to accessibility, press the cursor key to select.
Accessibility
And now I'm
features
going to
help you
navigate to
customize your
VoiceOver, again
iPhone
using
to
my
your
thumb keys,
individual need. Vision,
and press
VoiceOver,
the cursor key to
on,
select.
button,
Now within
VoiceOver,
VoiceOver, there should be an
on.
option called Commands. So I'm going to
Double
navigate
tap
to
to toggle
Commands.
setting. Audio, activities,
So there we go,
commands,
Commands, and press
button.
the cursor key to select.
All
In
commands,
Commands, there's
button.
various different commands that you can change, from touch gestures to keyboard shortcuts to Braille screen input for that matter. But there should be a Braille device heading followed by
Touch,
my display.
Brailliant
So here's
BI
my display,
X
and I'm going to press the cursor key to
654
select.
Braille.
So here
button.
there is many options, many different shortcuts that you can change from Braille devices, interaction, keyboard, navigations, all kinds of things. Now I believe my setting that I want to change should be under the VoiceOver. So if I go to VoiceOver, press cursor key. We have copy speech, we have item chooser,
next search result,
loads of different options,
button.
and then finally
Open
we have
VoiceOver
open
settings.
VoiceOver
.1
settings, which
plus
I've actually in
.3
fact
plus
already set,
.5
but I'm
plus
just going to showcase
.7
it to you
button.
anyway. I'm going to press the cursor key to open that, and it will give me, if any, they will give me the Braille keys that are currently assigned. If there is no keys assigned, it will completely be empty. But for this
.1 plus
instance,
.3
it's
plus
already assigned.
.5 plus .7.
I'm going to assign a new Braille key. So
Actions,
navigate forward.
assign
I have
new Braille
assign new Braille
keys,
keys,
button.
and I'm going to select. You'll now be prompted, press Braille keys.
Alert. Braille keys already. Replace. Cancel. Braille keys. Assign new
Braille keys. You'll be prompted, press Braille keys. Press the Braille keys you want to assign the open VoiceOver settings command. So at this point, your Braille display is looking for those keys, those shortcuts that you want to use to activate your VoiceOver settings. So I'm going to simply press my backspace with letter O. And you'll be prompted, if those keys are already in use, you'll be prompted what keys
.1 plus
they are
.3
and
plus
what they actually
.5
perform.
plus .7 is
So
already being
at the
used
moment,
to
it's prompting me
perform
that
the
it's already
open
been used.
VoiceOver settings command.
Settings, but it's very
Do you want to
useful
replace this
because if you have
command?
changed something like a copy command, or maybe it's a paste command, so instead of pressing space and V, which is your paste, it will prompt you, tell you that that has already been used. Are you sure you want to replace it? So at this point, I'm going to go and choose replace and select. So now my open VoiceOver setting is set to backspace with the letter O. Let's showcase and prove that it works. I'm going to go back to my home screen, space with the letter H for home.
Set.
And I'm now
Wednesday,
going
May
to
12.
open my VoiceOver settings by pressing backspace.
Actions available.
And hey presto.
Settings. Accessibility. Back button.
Okay, so I'm going to pass it over to you now, Peter. But just to summarize then, we've talked about how we can move through our screens, some general navigation, going to the top, space 1, 2, 3, to the bottom of your screen, space 4, 5, 6, mimicking that swipe up and swipe down by using space dot 6 and space dot 3. And of course, swiping left and swiping right using space dot 1, space dot 4, or your outer 2 thumb keys. And then, of course, our changing of the rotor commands, space 5, 6, and space 2, 3. Over to you, Peter.
So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about working with NVDA. And with that, what Andrew showed, that customizing your Braille commands is, I always like to show something very basic. And then we took a full advanced, beyond advanced sort of piece and showed how you can customize your Braille commands to really demonstrate that it is more than just emulating VoiceOver gestures with a Braille keyboard. There are ways to press command or control or lots of different things that you can do with VoiceOver on an iOS device that are not just limited to what, a Braille command has already been mapped. So you can create custom gestures and all sorts of things. And that's something that is used a lot. Now, another piece of this, and again, we've talked about JAWS. We're going to talk about NVDA in addition to VoiceOver. And NVDA is something I use a lot, depending, again, all of us have multiple tools in our toolbox. I talk about this all the time. There's no one-size-fits-all solution, much like you might not be stuck using one web browser or one piece of technology. You're definitely going to want to use, or at least be familiar with, multiple screen readers. NVDA's Braille support, by default, leaves quite a bit to be desired. It's not that it is non-existent. the nice thing about NVDA is Braille is automatically detected. So as soon as you pair your Braille display to your computer via Bluetooth, when you turn NVDA on, it is going to find your Braille display. It is very, very, very reliable. You can certainly add or modify those settings to add a Braille display individually. But what I want to show you is how to really bring Braille to the next level in NVDA. And that is to install what is called the Braille Extender. So we're going to look at how we install an add-on. It's a free add-on to NVDA that brings in a tremendous amount of functionality that far brings it way, way, way more in line with what JAWS offers in terms of Braille support and Braille commands. Things like auto scroll, things like being able to emulate all of your modifier keys and so on are all going to be made possible by installing the Braille Extender. Now, what I am going to do is I'm going to share my screen, and once again I'm going to share my sound. Bear with me one moment while I do this. Screen. All right, we're going to share sound. All right, now you will be hearing my NVDA talking here, and I am going to come in and show you how to add this Braille Extender, and then I'll show you how to get your feet wet with it, because we could be here for days and days and days really digging into it, much like with JAWS, but I'll show you how to utilize the resources to read through a how-to guide and really get going with exploring the commands that are available with NVDA when you have the Braille Extender installed. What I'm going to do is move my focus to the NVDA menu. And again, this is done by pressing the NVDA key, which is, I'm on a laptop, so the caps lock key, or if you're on a desktop, an insert key with the letter N as in NVDA.
N.
And once we're here,
NVDA menu.
What we're going to have is we're in the NVDA menu, and I'm going to come down to Tools. I could press T or use my down arrow here.
Preferences, Tools submenu.
Here's our Tools submenu. I'm going to press my right arrow.
View log V.
And we have lots of options here for logs and all sorts of things, but I'm going to come down.
Speak break Python can manage add-ons.
To the Manage Add-ons option here. I'm going to press Enter.
Add-ons Manager dialog. Installed add-ons list.
Now, I have this installed. So I have already installed it, and I didn't feel like removing it, but I'll show you how to find it. So we're going to press Tab, or I think we can hit Alt-G to actually get a new add-on, but let's press Tab a couple of times.
About remove Get Add-ons. Button Alt+G.
Right, it was Alt-G. So here's our Get Add-ons button. I'm going to press Enter, and it's going to bring me to the NVDA community forum here where I can find a list of add-ons.
Untitled Google Chrome. Document busy blank. Welcome to the NVDA Community Add-ons website.
All right, here's the Community Add-ons website, and this has a ton. There are tons and tons of add-ons for NVDA. You can really get into some neat stuff here and really, really spend a lot of time. What I want to do, though, is find the Braille Extender. So I am going to open up a links list or an elements list. I'm going to press Insert and F7 to do that, or NVDA key and F7.
Elements list.
And I'm going to press the letter B until I find the Braille Extender link.
B. Browser, B. Braille Extender, visited 43 of 93 level 0.
So here's the Braille Extender. Again, I opened my links list, came over to Braille Extender, press Enter.
Braille Extender Google Chrome, Braille Extender, visited link NVDA
and what this
community.
does is it brings us to the page for the Braille Extender. And what we'll have here is there are links that we need to do. We actually have to download this and then install it as an add-on. So I'm going to press H. You can find the Braille Extender
Braille
heading.
Extender heading level 1.
Now, if I use my down arrow, I will hear what this kind of is.
List with 4 items. Bullet NVDA compatibility 2012.4 to 2000.
So this has been out along, right, because supports a lot of versions back. This isn't something that's specific to the Braille display that you just got. You can certainly use this with lots of Braille displays.
Bullet down.
But here's our links to download, and we can download the stable version, which is what we want to do. You certainly could download a version for the beta testing and all sorts of things, as NVDA is very open source and lets you do whatever you want. But once you download
stable version link.
So again, I just pressed Tab. Again, after I found that first heading, I pressed Tab until I get to the download stable version link. I will press Enter here, and this will be downloaded into my downloads folder. Once it's in my downloads folder, I'm going to click on it, and NVDA will allow me to install it as an add-on. Once it is installed, I've now unlocked a tremendous amount of potential as for what I can do with a Braille display that goes far beyond the scope of what you can do with a Braille display just with NVDA as you get it from the NVDA website. So in this case, and there are menus in the actual NVDA menu to go into Braille Extender, but I want to show you quickly how you can perform a command to get into the NVDA how-to guide for the Braille Extender. So I'm going to come to my desktop here. And again, when we're using NVDA, much like when we use JAWS,
desktop list,
we can just press command keys 1, 4, and 5 to get to the desktop. We'll minimize all of our apps and bring us to the desktop. Once we have the Braille Extender enabled, pressing H, so again, the letter H, think of hotkeys, H with space or help, right? H with space brings me into the NVDA.
Braille Extenders documentation.
Braille Extender.
Braille Extenders documentation.
Documentation. And this brings me into a document that I can sift through to find all kinds of commands. NVDA now has a ton of Braille support because I've enabled this Braille Extender. What will happen is I can use H to move through this by headings, but just to give you a short example, I talked about how in JAWS, you know, we would press something like .2 with space and .8 followed by B to press Alt B. Or we could kind of map commands. They were mapped to modifier keys. And the way the Braille Extender worked is it takes it to the next level and really maps them all individually, which can be good or bad depending on whom you are. But let's say I want to figure out how to close a window. And this, again, is a very complex document. It offers lots and lots of pieces here. But if I press H...
Let's explore some features heading level 2.
So here's our... Let's explore some features. We're going to have one-handed mode. We're going to have lots of things in here. But if I want to get to my commands quickly, I'm going to press H a few times.
Method number 1. Simple keys, 37.
So here's our simple keys. And to give you a sense of how this works is I'm on the simple keys heading. I'm going to use my down arrow.
List with 37 items, bullet up arrow, .1 plus space.
Again, just like JAWS, up arrow is now .1 with space, and that is standard, pretty standard NVDA.
Bullet down arrow, .4 plus space.
Okay, .4 with space is down arrow. Let's keep going a little more down here.
Bullet tab, C6/.4 plus .5 plus space.
So again, this command, to emulate the tab key, I can either press command key 6, or I can press .4, 5, and spacebar, and so on. If I want to figure out how to close this window, I want to press H again.
Usual shortcuts.
And again, we don't write this document. This is all NVDA. I probably would call this common shortcuts, but they're calling it usual shortcuts. So you can take that up with them. But I'm going to use my down arrow here.
List with bullet control plus home, .2 plus .3 plus .8 plus space.
Now, again, you're going to have acrobatics here. But if I want to activate control home, which if you're a JAWS user, you know brings you to the top of a document, that's going to be .2, 3, 8, and spacebar. So 2, 3, enter, and space simultaneously will bring me up there. Again, in this list, if I come down to my Alt commands, I'm just going to use my down arrow here.
Bullet Alt plus Control plus Tab, .5 plus .6 plus .8 plus space /C1 plus C3 plus C5.
Right, we get a lot of info here, and some of them have multiple commands to emulate the same item. But let's find Alt F4.
Bullet Alt plus F4. .2 plus .5 plus .6 plus space.
And this is the example of a command that is very simple. So a dropped D, or 256 with space, emulates the Alt F4 command. Whereas in JAWS, I would have to press .2, .4, enter and space, followed by the letter D. And again, it sounds crazy and it can be involved, but if you're somebody who's determined to learn how to emulate or use all these features, you certainly can. But we'll see that I'm just going to press drop D with space.
Add-ons manager dialog.
Dump me out, and I can close my windows that way. I will emulate Alt F4. What I can also do in NVDA, I'm gonna come to my desktop.
Desktop list.
I have that keyboard help again, just like we saw with JAWS, just like we saw with VoiceOver. If I press command keys 1, 2, and 5,
input help on.
It says input help on. And at this point, if I press something like .4 with spacebar,
space with .4. Emulates pressing down arrow on the system keyboard.
It will tell me exactly what that does. One of the commands I like, I'm going to press space with the letter B.
Space with .12. Reports battery status and time remaining if AC is not plugged in.
Right, so a shortcut for my battery status, so I don't have to jump into my status bar, and vice versa. You can push keyboard commands. So if I whatever it is I press, it's going to report back what those keys do. I'm going to press space with a drop D.
Space with .256. Emulates pressing Alt plus F4 on the system keyboard.
And boom, we hear that command now, because I have the Braille Extender installed, is going to act like pressing Alt F4 on the Braille keyboard. So again, the Braille Extender is something I wanted to show because it brings NVDA as a free screen reader, can have some limitations at first, but if you really want to dive deep, there is a lot you can do. And this is something, the Braille Extender is something that can really expand what Braille is able to do for you. both from a navigation standpoint, as well as from making your keyboard emulation very doable from the Braille keyboard. So I am going to spend a minute here before we wrap up. I'm going to stop my screen share here.
Alt plus S, left control.
Oh, it would help if I turned off keyboard help. So I'm going to press Command keys 1, 2, 5.
C1 plus C2 plus C5. Input help off.
Now I have my input help off, and I'm going to actually stop my screen share.
Meeting.
All right. The piece of this, and we're running over, which is fine. We will have time for a couple of questions. But I do want to spend a minute or two talking about why somebody would choose a Braille display over a note taker, because it comes up all the time. You know, and a lot of times we hear, well, my preference is to use a Braille display, and I don't want to use all the bells and whistles of a note taker. And that makes perfect sense. What we really want to think about is what it is you're trying to do. If I am working, you know, with a Braille display, the Braille that I get and the pieces, and it's illustrated perfectly here, they are dictated by the screen reader. So if I'm comfortable with NVDA, or I'm comfortable with JAWS, or I'm comfortable with what I'm given from VoiceOver, there is nothing wrong with using a Braille display in VoiceOver throughout your school day, your work day, or anything else. But if you're somebody who is needing to go beyond the scope of what a screen reader offers you, maybe you're doing chemistry and maybe you need to convert Braille math into print, or maybe you're just more comfortable with that Keysoft environment. Maybe you want a Braille first layout, not just a layout that provides Braille commands, but a linear layout or a Braille first layout like something like Keysoft gives you. It can be a far better approach and make things far more intuitive. And then you take the computer side or the screen reader side and you learn it as in tandem with your Braille note taker. I will never, and I never have, and I never would tell somebody not to use a computer. We have to have computer skills. What I will tell somebody is when you're using a computer, please, 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 anywhere possible, use a Braille display with that computer so we can read the world around us and so that we have output and we're getting that good written communication. We certainly, we can't do everything on a computer as a Braille user. It's getting better. I mean, I know that there have been lots of strides with math and science. We can't do everything on a note taker that we can do on a computer. There's no doubt about it. We have to be able to assess kind of where and what our needs are. And a lot of users prefer to use individual products for specific reasons, but it always comes up as to why somebody would choose to use a Braille display with iOS as opposed to a note taker. One drawback that I've seen, if you're doing it for if you're in an educational setting and you're doing it for a cost reason, if the reason is strictly cost, what you can run into is very hard, a very tough time accessing certain mainstream applications because they're not running well with a screen reader / Braille display, and you're going to have to find other adaptations to get those pieces done. So, and that's where something, especially when it comes to math and science, where a note taker can shine, whereas something like an iOS and Braille display combination can struggle with some of those STEAM concepts. And there are certainly some that work very well and some that don't. So I always like to address that. Now, we've covered it all. We've gone crazy. We've gone over time, but I do want to turn it over, and Andrew will take some questions, and we can definitely have some time for that and answer a few. And I know we both have little babies that probably need us, so we'll see who has questions. But I'm going to turn it back over to you, Andy, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, thanks very much, Peter. And so just for everyone to know that I have enabled the raise hands button. So if you want to raise your hand and ask a question live to Peter and I, then please press Alt plus the letter Y for Yankee, or raise your hand. If selected and we ask you to unmute, then you can just press the letter A with the Alt key. Alternatively, please post your questions through the chat or the QA. We've had a couple of questions through Q&A, and I just want to read some of those out. So anyone who's a newbie on a Braille display, some of the great resources that are available to you are amongst our HumanWare Buddy application. And so if you have an iPhone, an Android device, download the HW Buddy application. There's some great resources there that gives you step-by-step instructions. We also have, as we previously mentioned in the webinar, resources available under our support page, which gives you some instructions on how to use our Brailliant BI X with iOS and how to use our Brailliant BI X with JAWS. So we have some attendees raising their hands. Let's get to some of these. We have the first caller, we have Penny. Hi, Penny. We're just going to allow you to talk. If you want to unmute yourself, press Alt plus the letter A. So Penny, Alt plus the letter A. If you want to unmute yourself, I'll just ask to unmute yourself again. There we go. No.
And it's okay. We'll do the
okay.
Well, rock and roll, Penny. You're on.
Thank you. I was trying to create a file with a new Notetaker or the Braille, and I used contracted Braille. Now I can't delete what I wrote when I'm trying to create a file. How do I delete using the Braille display?
What screen reader are you using, Penny?
The Brailliant BI 40.
Not display, but what screen reader? Where have you created a new file that you're trying to delete text?
Oh, no, I was just typing it on the edit fields, just in the Notetaker.
Right. Okay. In the editor. It sounds to me that perhaps you've got into computer Braille. So when you're pressing the backspace, it's not recognizing as a backspace. So what you should do, Penny, is press backspace, space, and the letter G together, and you should be prompted either uncontracted or contracted Braille on your Braille display.
Yeah, okay, and backspace should be deleting your character. So if you're in the editor, the internal editor on the Brailliant BI X series, backspace should be deleting, should be moving you backwards to delete your previous character. If it is not, as Andrew said, backspace, space, and G to get you out of computer Braille.
Great, thank you very much. Okay. It's a wonderful unit. I'm really pleased with it, and thank you for the session here was absolutely fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Penny. Rock and roll. Rock and roll, everybody.
Okay, next one we have Brian.
Brian.
Hi, Brian. Alt, press the letter A to unmute. Okay. There we go.
You guys hearing me okay?
We can. How's it going?
Hey, real good, guys. Great presentation. Sorry, this thing sounds like I'm probably down a cave. It's the only thing with this Sennheiser headset that I'm not wild about. You mentioned earlier about the government mode. How is that enabled? Or, I'm an employee of the Department of Defense, and I'm just curious how that is implemented, or how do you enable and disable that when you need to?
Sure. So unfortunately, it's something that you can't do from a user's point of view. So if you have a Braille display already, it's something that you're unable to do. It's really upon ordering. So if a government, the organization wants to order a Braille display for you, or you needed a Braille display in a government mode, it's upon the order. And at that point, that's when we have to disable. So we disable the Bluetooth, the wireless, the intelligence, and just really put it down as a dumbed down Braille display. Now, then the question is, well, how do I then get out of government mode? Unfortunately, that then poses a risk, right? A security risk. And so we don't want that available. So it's not possible to get out of that government mode once it's set.
Okay. That's what I sort of thought, but I just wanted to check how that worked. We do get questions from that. I work in our agency's regional accommodation division.
Sure.
And so
it definitely would be applicable for the Department of Defense. A lot of folks who work in SSA or other places where the devices they really want them fully locked down with zero internal capabilities, and that's something we can now offer. But yeah, it's done at that purchasing level.
Okay, thanks guys. Great session.
Thank you.
Cheers, Brian.
Thanks. All right.
Okay, we next have a telephone caller ending with 477.
477.
Yes, can you hear me?
Absolutely.
My name is Jim, and I want to tell you, without belaboring the point, that I have attended many webinars, mostly for competitor products, and you guys presented an awesome hour and 10-minute seminar. It was complex, it was detailed, but your descriptive detail was phenomenal and over the top, and I would have sent it in an email, but I had to tell you, I think you guys just did an incredibly good job. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much,
Thanks, Jim. Yeah.
It really is, it's very much appreciated, everybody. And I see a lot of familiar names on the list of attendees. I see a lot of names I don't know. Andrew and I have been doing these now for a while, And it really is, it's great to hear, and we will keep this content coming. I know this stuff can get very involved and very intense, and we can jump very, into things and get way out in the weeds, which is definitely not our goal. So we know nothing is seamless, and it's easy to kind of get lost in the content, but we really appreciate that, and we try to keep it seamless. We also try to give you more than just some very, very basic information or some broad strokes. So it is definitely much appreciated. Thanks so much, Jim.
Yep, thanks, Jim.
Yep.
With that being said, this will be archived as we archive all of our webinars. So it will be on our HumanWare Live, the support page, as well as on our YouTube channel. And that should probably be going out with the announcements probably sometime early next month. You also, if you have suggestions, you can certainly send them to humanwarelive@humanware.com. And we're always happy to take further webinar suggestions there. The other thing I should mention, because I haven't, is if you would like to join the Brailliant BI user list, you can certainly do so. And that is going to be available as a groups.io list. And you can subscribe by sending a message to Brailliant-BI-X-users, the plus sign, the word subscribe, at groups.io. So again, it's standard for any groups.io message. So if you want to subscribe to any groups.io list, you send a message to the list name, the plus sign, and the word subscribe at groups.io. So it's Brailliant BI X users. BI stands for Braille input. X is for 10 years of Brailliant. So BI X users. So Brailliant-BI-X-users at groups.io.
Thanks, Peter. I've just put that in the chat as well for anyone.
Perfect.
Okay. So just another going to the chat, we have two questions here from Karen. Is there Braille support for Microsoft Narrator? So the answer to that is currently no. Unfortunately, Narrator does not support the new Braille standard that has been launched, but I am told that we should be able to get that up and running with Narrator in the next release of Narrator. So once Microsoft push a new update with their Braille TTY, hopefully then our Braille displays will be supported. So I'm hoping maybe in a couple of months here, Karen.
And to take that a step further, Android is also in the same boat, as well as Chrome OS. So Android and Chrome OS, as well as Narrator, the answer is, are they supported? Not currently. They do not support the new HID Braille protocol, but will they support it? Absolutely. It is a matter of time, and you can certainly rest assured that they're aware. They know what's going on, and we'll hope that they get it implemented sooner than later, but they're well aware that these pieces need to come on their devices. So those screen readers will be supported. It's a matter of when, not if.
So the second question from Karen is, and this is a good question, and I think the answer is no, but Peter, I need your confirmation. Is there a way to drag items on an iOS using Braille?
There is, and do this, Karen. So if you want to drag, and I'm assuming you're referring to deleting or editing apps, like if you add items to a drag session and such, you would do this through the Actions rotor. When you're on the home screen, you would set your rotor to Actions, flick down, and you'll have Edit mode. And then in your rotor, you're going to have an Actions area. If you flick down, you'll have Add Item to Drag Session and so on. So you can add 2, 3, 4, 6 apps and drop them into a folder or move them around your home screen.
Awesome. I learned something new myself, Peter.
Heck yeah. That's the name of the game.
Okay, let's have a look at some callers. So we next have David. Hi, David.
Nice. Dave with like the bell going off when you unmuted.
Wait. Well, don't know what to tell you about that.
Love it.
I have a question here that I have been needing to ask somebody for a while. I have tried at least 4 times to get HW Buddy working in. I have not succeeded on an iPhone 12 mini at all.
Are you signed in anywhere else, Dave?
Do what?
Do you know if you're signed into the app on another device? Because we've had an issue with tokens where are you signed in anywhere?
Not as far as I know, because I've tried to sign in several times and I get through putting my information in. I go try to sign in, and I get a blank screen.
Yeah, I think what this is, David, is some issues with the server. We have come across a couple of users that have experienced this problem. And so what we are actually doing, David, and we are in the middle of doing this, is transitioning from one server to another server. We believe that will correct the issue. So I can't give you a time frame as when that will happen, but we are moving the servers over to another server, which should be faster and hopefully will resolve that problem, I am told. So let's put if I was going to put a timestamp, I would say 1 to 2 months. We want to make sure that we transition over without avoiding any disruptions to other users. So I do apologize if you are experiencing those types of issues, but hopefully we will resolve those from moving from a different server.
And it means I'll have to track you down and tell you when it's done, because I can definitely send you a note for sure. I know you've asked me before about it, and I know I had pushed it up the ladder and didn't get you any resolution there. So
thanks, David. Okay, we next have ZZ.
ZZ.
Hello. Hi. I've not talked to you before. But I have a Mantis. Can you answer a question about a Mantis?
Oh, of course I'm happy to. Yeah.
Okay. I just purchased it, so I'm still learning it, and I do like the Notetaker because it has a QWERTY keyboard. I prefer that over the Braille keyboard or the Perkins Big keyboard. But I'm trying to transfer information from an USB to the Mantis so that I don't have to carry a USB whenever I want to look at this information. I've been unable to do that. How do I do that?
So if you have, do you have files on a thumb drive?
Yes.
So what you're going to want to do is you will insert your thumb drive into the unit, and it's going to be done through the file manager. And this is a great question because it will apply to the Brailliant BI X series as well. Just has a different couple sets of the commands are different, but the idea is the same. What you need to do is you're going to put those files on a thumb drive. You will insert the thumb drive into your unit. On the main menu, you'll press the letter F and find your file manager. And at that point, you're going to press enter to open the file manager. Once you're there, you're going to want to use Control and the letter D as in drive. And on the Braille side, for all of you BI X users, the command is space with D. That gets you up to drive selection. At that point, you can select your USB drive from the list, and you will see your folders, which are going to be followed by a 8-dot full cell. I'm sorry, preceded by an 8-dot full cell. So any folder has an 8-dot full cell before it. You can open the folder you'd like to get your files from, and then it's a matter of, again, looking in your context menu to find, well, how do I copy this file? How do I select multiple files, like mark or unmark? You can copy and paste them, and then you would copy them to the clipboard, press Control D again to get back up to drive selection, open storage, and paste them where you want them to go. It's going to emulate exactly what you do on a computer. The trick I think you may be missing is getting to your drive selection.
Yeah.
So Control D on the Mantis or space with D on the BI X series gets you up to drive selection. You open the drive you would like, open the folder you want, and then again, it's a matter of, let's just say, you want to copy a file, it's Control C, or cut is Control X, or you're going to want to look in your context menu to get this file specific commands. The context menu from anywhere on a Mantis, if you press Control M as in menu, Control M will give you your shortcuts. On a Braille BI X series, it's space with M to open that context menu. And all of those shortcuts are there. So marking and unmarking certain files, or coming in to get file info, or rename, or delete, or copy, or cut, or paste, and so on.
Okay, I was just not selecting the drive. That was my problem.
No problem at all. You'll once you get the hang of it, you'll be like, oh yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you so much. All right, we'll do a couple more. Andy, it's getting late. You have not had I know you have baby monitor right there. I haven't heard. My baby's been yelling more than yours.
Yeah, she's fast asleep. I'm quite lucky. Next one then we have is Anthony.
Anthony. You're on with Andy. I'll take a back
Good
seat.
afternoon, gentlemen. How
How's
are
it
you?
going? Wonderful. How are you?
Wonderful.
Okay. I have the e-reader that they use here in the United States. Are these any of these commands, would they work with the e-reader?
So Anthony's referring to the NLS e-reader, and
Right.
when it comes to using it with a screen reader, yes, the commands will be they'll be the same. They're going to be synonymous with what we gave here today. So as far as the keyboard commands, but again, that's something, you know, it's not necessarily, NLS is going to be providing your support on that side of things, Anthony. This is really geared more toward that intelligent Braille display side.
Now, my next question is, I also have the BI 14.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the BI 14, that fits in a little bit better with the intelligent, side of things, as you call it, correct?
Well, yes. So there is an application on iOS called Brailliant Sync that you can use to sync your notes. But in terms of using it with a screen reader, there is a document that goes through all of the different screen reader commands on the BI 14. It's on the BI 14 support page.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much. Oh, the Mantis, which is a 40 cell display, if I remember correctly. What basically is the difference between the Mantis and the other 40 cell display you have? I just can't seem to get a handle on this.
So the Brailliant BI 40 has a Braille keyboard. The Mantis Q40 is a full QWERTY keyboard.
Oh,
that's your difference.
Oh, okay.
There are other differences, but at its most basic level, that is going to be your difference. Outside of, there are some Bluetooth differences, audio differences, there are some internal differences, but at its most basic level, one is a QWERTY keyboard that you use standard QWERTY commands on, which we haven't talked about today, being the Mantis. The BI 40, BI stands for Braille input. So when you think of BI, any of our Brailliant BI units, they're using a Perkins-style Braille keyboard.
Are there any differences between the 40 and the 20 outside of the number of cells?
There certainly are. We've covered it in previous webinars quite a bit. In terms of there are some differences with the 40 having stereo speakers, the 20 having mono, the 40 having a microphone. The 40 uses Bluetooth 5, whereas the 20 does not. There are some differences, and I definitely would look at the previous webinars Andrew and I have done when we introduce the products, because we go through in detail what the differences are on the units. This was more focused on the screen reader side.
Right. Thank you to both of you.
Thanks, Anthony.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Anthony. All right, we're going to do one more.
Okay, we've got Roberts. Hi, Robert.
Robert.
Sounded. Hello, are you there, Robert?
Robert, I don't know. You might not have a good internet connection, my friend.
Is it unmuted now?
Oh, now you're good.
There we go.
Okay. I am trying to get my head around the Braille Editor, basically, and I know it saves the text in a text format, but I want to use it with Braille music, which is not standard contracted Braille. It's not standard uncontracted Braille.
Yep. Until we enable the editing of BRF files, which is something that has been requested a lot, you're going to be able to use it to read Braille music. You can read the BRF file in the Victor Reader application, which will not, where you will then be able to read Braille music without any problem. You will not be able to edit that though, because you're not editing within the Victor Reader app. So once we're able to edit BRF files, which again has been asked for, it's on our roadmap, it's been brought up, we would then be able to edit those files. Right now, if you want to read the Braille music files, instead of opening them in the editor, where you're right, it's going to convert them into text, you're going to lose all that music, because music is, I know Braille music, I've used it a long time. and it's a very different code, much like Nemeth or chemistry or anything else. You're going to want, instead of opening that in the editor, you want to open that in the Victor Reader application.
Okay.
And then you'll read it just like it was written. You'll read all that nice raw Braille.
Okay, thank you.
No
Thanks,
problem, Robert.
Okay, we have one last caller. We might as well answer that one.
One more, we can get to it, and then we are running the same webinar tomorrow morning. So for the UK at 2 o'clock UK time tomorrow, same thing.
Okay, so we have Viola. Hi, Viola.
Hello, how are you?
Wonderful. How are you?
Good,
Peter, I don't know if you remember me. I have been used to work with Blinksoft. I don't know if you remember that.
I do.
I'm in Washington State. Yeah. I am an assistive technology specialist. I like to know what's up and coming, so I download all the manuals and look at everything. However, I think I'm going to have to get one of these because it's the iOS documents and the JAWS documents and NVDA documents, are they separate from the manual or user's guide, or
Yes.
are they within the guide? So I can look.
They are separate. So they're on the support page. We don't have an NVDA guide yet. It's something I don't think we'll have because, again, without the Braille Extender, and I'm not going to go through, and the Braille Extender is just so advanced, and really all of their documentation is separate. The JAWS and iOS documents are in the on the support page for, if you go to humanware.com or you go to support.humanware.com and click on the Brailliant BI X Series link, you will be brought to the support page, and the iOS and JAWS documentation that Andrew and I have created and worked on is up there. The Mantis version will be coming soon, right, Andy?
Yes, just waiting for your approval, Peter.
Yeah, it's on me. I know. I think we're good to go on it. I have a few commands I wanted to add, but those documents are separate from the user guide because they're a lot longer, and they really do go into some of these basic commands and
that's
kind of
what more detail, right?
Yeah.
The last question is, you were talking about the education, the government education thing. Well, I'm an instructor, but not with a school district or, that kind of thing. But I do have would it be for somebody if they have a business license, or do you know any of that?
I highly doubt it. I'm not positive. You'd have to look up ARPA, and I'm sure there's somebody who would really know. But I believe this funding that is going to these cities, that is going to school districts specifically to address learning loss in the pandemic. So what we're referring to here, and I'm not saying there isn't other ways to get equipment, but this ARPA funding is specifically coming as part of that act that was passed in early 2021, is allocated to school districts and allocated to cities through those methods. Now, that is, I'm not sure how it will differ from state to state. I know, though, again, that it was designated and kind of dedicated to education specifically.
Okay, great. Thank you, Peter. Nice to
No
talk.
problem. You too.
Thank you. Well, that concludes the session. So we're 30 minutes over the scheduled times. Yeah. But hey, we love this kind of stuff. We love making sure that you will get the feedback and answers to your questions. So as Peter said, we have another webinar tomorrow. By all means, you can join us. It's going to be at 2 p.m. UK time, which of course in Eastern time will be 9 o'clock Eastern time. Yep. You're more than welcome to register, but it's going to be a replica of today's session. So thanks everyone for joining me. Thank you, Peter, for joining us as well. And we'll wait for the next webinar, which hopefully maybe next month.
I think so. We'll have to do
planned
something.
It out yet, have we?
We gotta think of some topics. So if anyone has a suggestion, send them to humanwarelive@humanware.com, and I'm sure you will hear us on a podcast or a virtual show or a booth, or I've been everywhere the last several weeks, and this week is no exception. So Andrew and I will be at a virtual or pre-recorded session near you until we're at a table in front of you. So thank you everybody for being here. It is much appreciated, as Andrew said. So we love doing this stuff, and we will keep things coming.
Yeah, and just to find out about the future webinars, you can go to our website. Also, you'll be notified if you have got the HumanWare Buddy application as well. Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening.
Rock and roll. Thanks, Andrew.